The British sky in 1940, where the iron birds fly into the fire, and 3 people, a pilot, a radar girl, and enemy, are bound by the same sky of life and death. Who will survive? Who will disappear into the clouds? Subscribe to the channel and leave a comment to discover the next historical stories. Now, let's get started.
Early morning in Kent, salt mist clung to the collar of Eliza Moore, a WAF soldier on the chain-home radar. The antennas rose like steel forests, silently scanning the sea. She put down her teacup as a series of dots flashed across the screen. Steady, cold, not birds, planes. In Norfolk Holt, Lieutenant Arthur Hawk Bennett laced up his flying helmet, his fingers perching the scratched face of his watch, a memento of his father, World War I pilot. Just another day, he smiled faintly, knowing full well that any day could be his last. Across the channel, Luftwaffe Major Franz Faber traced a route to London on a map. London today, he said quietly. An architect before becoming a pilot, Franz thought of the bridges and churches about to be bombed. He believed that the war would end with ruthlessness, though he doubted it.
Alarms rang across the radar station. Eliza pushed the wooden cards on the map, marking each group of enemy planes approaching the mainland. 70 targets, 12,000 feet, she shouted over the machine, sweat beading her forehead. The orders travelled down the telephone lines to the squadrons. At Norfolk, sirens cut through the fog. Scramble. Arthur rushed out onto the deck and climbed into his Spitfire. The Merlin roared, the propellers turning to silver plates. The steel falcons left the ground and soared toward the dawn. "Bennett, Red Leader, do you hear?" "Yes," Arthur said, his eyes fixed east. "For Kent," he muttered. "For Mother."
Across the channel, Franz pushed the throttle. The Bf-109 shuddered and lifted off. Below him, the Heinkel Heya-Letterns flew in a line, huge and slow like a school of gray whales. The radio crackled dryly. "Keep in formation. Don't split up." Franz looked down at the sea, reflecting the pale sky. Everything was strangely calm, the calm before the storm. A young pilot held out a photograph of the girl hidden in his glove. Franz smiled, then glanced at his watch. 5 minutes to shore. He thought of the old plans for the Arch Bridge in Berlin, which must be gathering dust now. After the war, he said to himself, we'll rebuild it all. But he knew he might never return. On the radar map, Eliza saw the dots closing in on London. "Vector 090, 15,000, she radioed. Outside, the Spitfires turned. Arthur rose through the gray clouds, and when they parted, he saw them. Heinkel beaks glowing in the sun, escorted by Bf-109s. "Sight!" he shouted. Red Leader rushed ahead. Arthur followed, pulling the trigger. The Spitfires shook violently, Hispano rounds streaking through the air. A Heinkel was hit, black smoke billowing like lace, but a 109 came from behind. 6 o'clock! The radio screamed. Arthur rolled, pulling sharply, blood rushing to his eyes. Bullets pounded the fuselage, each dry beat. He held the wheel tight. The Spitfires swooped down, the sky tilting as if to swallow him. Franz followed the Spitfire that had just shot down the Enkel. He locked on, his sights level. For a split second he hesitated, as if he was standing before an ancient bridge he was about to blow up. Then he pulled the trigger. The bullet lodged in the Spitfire's hull, but the enemy spun out of sight. "Clever," Franz said. He pulled hard, the G-forces crushing him like a rock. "Don't think, just fly." Arthur fell close to the ground, spinning sharply, narrowly escaping. When he looked up, he saw the Heinkels dropping bombs. London, the train station, the market, the bridge, was all a thin, trembling line in front of his eyes. He gripped the wheel, not knowing what he was fighting for, except to keep the sky still.
The bells of St. Clement's rang out as Londoners rushed to the shelters. A boy held a cat, watching the concrete ceiling vibrate.
At a nearby hospital, a nurse pulled a tarp to block out the blasts. The city held its breath. At the dispatch center, Eliza watched the screen fill with flashing dots. The distant sound of explosions made her frown. The trajectory is off! She adjusted the ruler on the map, where the dots representing her comrades, the Silver Falcons, were plunging into the smoke and fire.
High above, Arthur followed the smoking hindcall. He pulled the trigger, and a bullet hit the left engine. A propeller stopped. The German plane nosedived, 3 parachutes opening. Arthur passed close, caught the panicked eyes behind the glass. "Back to the team!" the radio boomed. He pulled around, his heart still pounding. On the other side, Franz saw the chute open. "Zurück! Get the team together!" he shouted. A Spitfire closed in, so close he could see the determined brown eyes through the glass. They passed each other, a blink between life and death.
In the village schoolhouse that had been turned into a bunker, Arthur's mother, Margaret, taught the children to sing softly to drown out the bombs. She had no idea where her son was, and could only look up when a shadow passed by the window. Eliza walked through the courtyard, filled with smoke and the smell of strong tea. A colleague pressed a peppermint candy into her hand. "Don't forget to breathe." She smiled. "I'm trying," like a sea breeze. Outside, the sound of engines still echoed like the heartbeat of England. In the midday sun, Arthur's Merlin engine was blazing hot. The fuel gauge was red. "Red section, bingo fuel for 7 minutes." He bit his lip, about to pull out. On the other side, Franz also heard the command to pull out. "Zurück!" He looked back at the formation. A few planes hadn't returned. They said pilots didn't count, but he counted anyway. Every gap was a friend, and tonight he would see them again in his dreams.
A loud bang. Arthur felt the left wing tear. The Spitfire shook violently, skidding like a stone on water. He landed hard in a green field, the tires crushing the grass. The plane stopped, a light smoke rising. He opened the cockpit lid, fell to the grass, and laughed dryly when he saw a farmer running towards him, shouting, "Good show! Good show!" Arthur looked up at the sky, over the wind, where the smoke was still drifting, and life was still alive.
The afternoon was falling. Eliza looked down at the map, the cards dwindling. "They're gone," the officer said. She leaned her forehead against the glass, looking out at the honey-yellow sky. The seagulls rustled like breath. Arthur was bandaged at the airfield. "No broken bones, just bruises," he smiled. "Give me a cup of tea, that's enough." The mechanic touched the torn wing as if it were a wounded child. "We patched it up before you could finish," he said. Arthur just nodded, silently grateful.
Franz landed in France, the sun setting like a red slash on the sea. He turned off the engine, sat quietly in his tent, lit a cigarette, and put it out immediately. The smell of smoke reminded him of burning oil and lost comrades. He wrote in his notebook, "Sometimes you have to blow up a bridge to keep another one standing." He wasn't sure why, it just felt right. In London, the siren sounded. Margaret opened the hatch, inhaling the ash-scented air. "Still standing," she whispered. She put her hand to her chest, her heart still beating, like the sound of England's engines that hadn't died yet. Eliza was on the night shift, the phosphorescent light shining on her young face. She wrote to her brother, "War is like a room with little lamps. The lamps go out and come on. It is my job to keep them lit." She smiled, folded the letter, keeping a shred of humanity in the cold number. Arthur sat beside the Spitfire being repaired. He told the story of the battle like an adventure. Everyone listened, smiling. No one spoke of fear. They kept their lights on that way.
Dawn returned. Eliza stepped out of the radar station, looking at the blue sky, yesterday's smoke still faintly visible. "Today," she said. Arthur took the new Spitfire, its silver paintwork gleaming. He ran his hand down the fuselage, whispering, "We're flying again." Across the strait, France looked at the same sky, thinking of the unfinished bridge plans. They didn't know each other, but they both held the same thing, to keep the world standing. The siren wailed again, the wings flapped again. Somewhere in the clouds, two strangers passed each other, looked at each other for a moment as human beings, and then continued. On the ground, Arthur's mother looked up. The mechanic tightened a bolt. Eliza pushed a small card on the map. All held the same thing. Still standing, still flying, still alive.
Amidst the smoke and the ravaged sky, people still hold on to small rays of light. Faith, courage, and humanity. That is the spirit of Echo Planes. Subscribe to Echo Planes to watch the next stories. Thank you. See you again.